Welcome, travelers, to Adventures in Security. In this video, we explore application and circuit-level gateways, what they are, how they work, and how we use them in a defense in depth. You can download the video script from the link below. Today, we're comparing two gateway-style firewalls, application gateways and circuit-level gateways. Both act like middlemen that relay traffic, but they make decisions at different layers, which changes what they can block, what they can log, and how much complexity they add. By the end, you should be able to explain how each one works, place them correctly inside a defense-in-depth design, and choose the right one for inbound protection, outbound control, or internal segmentation. As we go, listen for the trade-off. More visibility and control usually means more complexity and overhead. Let's start by grounding this in defense in depth, because gateways are powerful, but they're never the only layer. Defense in depth means we assume something will fail, so we design multiple layers to stop an attacker from getting all the way through. Gateways are best placed at edges of trust, the boundaries where risk changes. The obvious one is the internet perimeter, but segmentation creates many more boundaries inside the network, including a DMZ to app tier, an app tier to database, user network to server network, and the restricted admin zone. Think of gateways as specialized gatekeepers that enforce policy at those boundaries. But don't confuse them with an entire security program. You still need identity and access management to control who is allowed, endpoint defenses to stop local compromise, monitoring to detect abnormal behavior, and baseline stateful firewall rules to control which networks can even talk in the first place. An application gateway, often called an application proxy, is a firewall that actually understands the application protocol. For example, it can speak HTTP for web traffic, SMTP for email, or FTP for file transfer. The key idea is that the proxy becomes the endpoint for the client. Your client connects to the proxy, not directly to the server. Then the proxy opens a second connection to the server. That separation gives you strong control. You can restrict HTTP methods, allow only specific URL paths, validate protocol behavior, require user authentication, and sometimes filter content. This is why application gateways are popular where the application layer is the main attack surface, like web apps and APIs. The trade-off is that deeper inspection and per-protocol features usually increase complexity and resource cost. Let's walk the flow. Step 1. The client sends its request to the proxy. That might be because the user is configured to use a proxy, or because routing forces traffic through it. Step 2. The proxy evaluates the request, who the user is, what they're trying to access, whether the request follows the protocol, and whether it violates policy. Step 3. Only if approved, the proxy opens a separate connection to the destination server and relays the request. Step 4. Because the proxy sees the entire transaction, it can produce rich logs, user identity, destination, request details, and outcomes. In incident response, that visibility is huge. The main mental model is application gateways don't just allow port 443, they can allow get to these paths for these users, which is much closer to how real attacks happen. In real environments, application gateways are often deployed as reverse proxies in front of web applications, sometimes with web application firewall features. Why? Because inbound web traffic is noisy and attackers hide inside allowed protocols like HTTPS. A stateful firewall might allow port 443, but an application gateway can enforce rules at the request level, such as only certain hosts, only certain paths, only certain methods, and sometimes basic input validation or threat signatures. It can also integrate with authentication, so that identity isn't an afterthought. One caution. If traffic is encrypted, you may need TLS termination, or inspection, at the gateway to see the details, and that introduces key management and privacy considerations. But conceptually, this is the strongest gateway when you need to control what the application is actually doing. A circuit-level gateway is also a proxy, but it focuses on the session rather than the application content. Instead of inspecting URLs or commands, it concentrates on establishing legitimate connections and enforcing policy around who can connect to what. It typically creates two circuits: client to gateway and gateway to destination, then relays traffic between them. Because it usually doesn't decode application data, it can be simpler and faster than an application gateway, but it also has less visibility into what's inside the traffic. A classic example is a SOX proxy, which lets clients request outbound connections through a controlled intermediary. In security terms, circuit-level gateways are often best for egress control, preventing internal devices from directly reaching the internet and centralizing outbound access policy. Here's the circuit-level flow. First, the client connects to the gateway and asks it to reach a destination. Second, the gateway evaluates that request against policy. Maybe only certain users can go out, only specific destinations are allowed, and only on approved ports. Many organizations add time-of-day controls or rate limits to reduce misuse. Third, if the request is allowed, the gateway opens the outbound connection to the destination. Fourth, it relays traffic between the two circuits. Because it's not typically parsing application payloads, it won't naturally block a malicious URL the way an application gateway could. But it still provides strong security value. It hides internal addresses, prevents direct outbound connections, and produces centralized session logs: who connected, to where, when, and how much data moved. That's great for detecting suspicious egress patterns. Think of this as a trade-off triangle. Application gateways provide the most granular control because they understand application behavior. That yields powerful policy and very detailed logs, but it increases configuration complexity and resource costs. Circuit-level gateways are typically easier to run at scale because they validate and broker sessions without decoding every request. That makes them a strong choice for broad outbound control and segmentation, where you don't need application-level inspection. What they share is important. Both are proxies, meaning internal systems don't connect directly to external systems. That reduces exposure, enables centralized policy, and often improves logging. So the decision usually comes down to this question: do you need to make security decisions based on application content or just who can establish connections to what? Placement depends on the direction and the risk. For inbound traffic, public users reaching your services, you usually want an application gateway because the attacks are aimed at web and API behavior. Place it in front of the application tier, typically at the DMZ boundary, and let it enforce request-level rules. For outbound traffic, circuit-level gateways are common because you want centralized egress control, prevent direct internet access, force authentication, and allow only approved destinations or ports. Inside the network, consider gateways at boundaries, where a compromise would be dangerous, such as user networks reaching server networks, applications reaching databases, and admin access networks reaching management interfaces. The theme is simple. Application gateways shine where content matters. Circuit-level gateways shine where session brokering and centralized egress policy matter. Let's apply this. If you're protecting a public API from the internet, you want an application gateway because you care about request patterns, endpoints, and authentication. If you're managing corporate web browsing, an application-aware web proxy can enforce categories, identities, and detailed logging, so this often leans application gateway. If you have servers that only need outbound access for patching and updates, a circuit-level gateway is a clean choice. Allow sessions only to approved update destinations and block everything else. For a contractor network, you often place a gateway at the boundary to internal applications, require strong identity controls, and apply least privilege rules. Notice what we're doing. We're choosing based on threat model and needed visibility, not because one gateway is better universally. Here are the traps that cause real-world failures. First, encryption. If everything is HTTPS, you may not see what you need without TLS termination or inspection, especially for application gateways. That can be worth it, but it comes with governance, privacy, and key management responsibilities. Second, bypass. A proxy only helps if traffic is forced through it. Ensure network paths and firewall rules prevent direct-to-internet access that skips the gateway. Third, availability. Decide whether the gateway should fail open or fail closed. Fail closed is safer, but it can cause outages if the gateway goes down. Fail open preserves availability, but weakens security. Finally, policy and logs. Keep rules minimal. Document changes and review logs and exceptions. Gateways generate value through visibility, only if you actually look at it. That's it for this video. If you learned anything, please remember to give us a thumbs up and subscribe. And until next time, be careful what you click.